with all of you, and you can let me know if you can view the screen.
Sorry about that technical glitch. Can you hear me now? Can we use our chat room to reconfirm if you're able to hear me? Y for yes and for no.
Yes, we are able to hear you, Kanika.
Thank you, Rajul. So I don't know at what point I lost the network, but here are some of the supporting programs which are supporting our core leadership journeys and are very helpful in engaging the participant throughout a longer leadership journeys or learning journeys across hierarchies. So I'll leave you at this slide for some time. Let me know if you have any question on any of these specific program before we move into the subject of the day, which is conversational capacity.
Akanksha, to answer your question, yes, you will get a presentation. However, that would be more from the standpoint of giving you a cursory idea of what conversational capacity is. This is a highly IPR protected material, and that is why we would not be able to share with you anything related to facilitation. So, in conversational capacity, Satish, we were talking of the core programs here. Rajul Kansal, I'm taking over the discussion. Kanika, you can stop sharing the slide. I'll share the screen. So, to discuss with you, to bring more context to this conversation, what I can tell you is conversational capacity fits in right where we believe that there are any conversations where we need effectiveness. We knew that there were few programs available in the market which were doing rounds where it was needed for the situation to be adverse. The conversations had to be fairly challenging. Let me check with all of you. Are you able to see the screen here? The volume is low. Okay. Is it better now? Okay. Wonderful. So we are talking of conversational capacity here. And before I begin with the demo, I wanted to answer the question which was around a little louder. Okay. So this is about the conversations that we hold in our organizations. The purpose of any conversational related program should ideally be to address all the requirements of conversations, not just specific to critical conversations. Ideally, we should be able to plug the gap where we are talking of conversations where there could be a possible challenge. So we realized we had a program called Challenging Conversations, which was addressing the critical conversations only. Now we have devised a program which has an over encompassing impact on all your conversations that you have in your organization. We call it conversational capacity. So, what do we mean by conversational capacity? Craig Weber, who is also the author of this program, he defines conversational capacity as a tool that helps people dramatically improve not just how they communicate, but also how they influence, collaborate, manage, and lead. So, this is my demo link through which I'll be taking the session ahead, wherein we will learn about conversational capacity from the master himself. Do let me know if you're able to hear it. Is this audible? Wonderful. So I'll play that.
Have you ever been in a discussion or meeting where the lines of communication have broken down? The conversation may have faltered because people withheld their ideas or concerns or provided only guarded responses. Or perhaps people were argumentative, even combative, making it difficult or impossible to constructively explore new ideas or consider fresh perspectives. All too often, both these dynamics occur at the same time. When this happens, the ability to have productive dialogue is diminished, and creativity, collaboration, learning, and innovation all suffer. In these instances, people are demonstrating low conversational capacity. So, what is conversational capacity? Conversational capacity is the ability of a person or team to have open, balanced, non-defensive dialogue about difficult subjects and in challenging circumstances. When conversational capacity is high, we can address our toughest issues in a fair and constructive way. But when conversational capacity is low, even a minor difference of opinion can throw our conversations off track. A person or team with high conversational capacity can balance two things under pressure: candor and curiosity. High candor creates conversations that are open, honest, forthright, and direct. High curiosity, on the other hand, ensures the conversations are open-minded, inquisitive, and learning-focused. Maintaining this balance between candor and curiosity creates a conversational sweet spot where learning flourishes and breakthroughs can happen. Conversational capacity is powerful. The more difficult the issues we're facing, the more daring the goals we've set, and the more extreme the differences in personality or opinion around the table, the more important conversational capacity becomes in both our individual and team performance. And here's the good news. The ability to work in the conversational sweet spot, to remain both candid and curious under pressure, is a skill we can learn so that we can benefit from everyone's best thinking and work smarter, faster, and together when it counts.
So, conversational capacity is not just applicable to your critical situations. If deployed at the right time, it can address the smaller differences appropriately with candor and some bit of curiosity. By curiosity, we mean that you stay curious to know about the other person's perspective. By candor, we mean that you share your perspective with all honesty and respectfully. So, what is conversational capacity? It's defined as the ability of a person or a team to engage in an open, balanced, non defensive dialogue about difficult subjects in challenging circumstances. Now, we come to the model of conversational capacity. This is candor. Candor says it's being open, honest, forthright, and direct. Curiosity means being open minded, inquisitive, and eager to learn. Somewhere in middle, somewhere in between, when you experience both and when you're open to making others experience both, there's a sweet spot that's there in any meeting or any conversation where candor and curiosity are in balance. Now, there could be certain benefits that we could reap out of it. What are those benefits? With high conversational capacity, an individual or a team can address even the most challenging issues in a balanced, constructive way. But when it is low, even a simple disagreement can derail a conversation or a complete meeting. Now, there's a way for us to operate here. I'll request you to let me know where would you want me to put these statements. The first statement is issues are more thoroughly investigated and information is openly shared when the risk of low conversational capacity, or is it the benefit of high conversational capacity? If the issues are more thoroughly investigated and information is openly shared. Akanksha says it's a benefit. Let's try that, Akanksha. Yes, that's a benefit. So the next one is team morale is higher and teamwork increases. Is that a risk of low conversational capacity or a benefit of high conversational capacity? Let's try the benefit. That's correct, Ritu. Blind spots aren't revealed until they become an issue. Is this a benefit? This is a risk. Yes, Ritu. Thanks, Srishti. So people withdraw from the conversation. Is this a risk? Yes, this is a risk. People feel disengaged and disrespected. I'll implore all of you to type just R for a risk and a B for a benefit. I'm just making it easier for everyone. So this is the risk. Yes. Discussions become arguments. That's because of risk. Yes, Satish. Thank you. Problems go unaddressed. That's a risk. Discussions yield innovative solutions and progress. This is a benefit. People are engaged in the conversation. That's the benefit. People feel heard and respected. A benefit. That's correct. So 10 on 10 cards are correct. Thank you very much to all of you. Now, what are the learning objectives of high conversational capacity? Yeah. You try to build your awareness of the obstacles to high conversational capacity. The second is you develop the conversational capacity mindset. And the third is you learn skills for building your own conversational capacity and that of your team. How do you do that? For that, we move to the second section of it, which is minimize and win tendencies. Maintaining high conversational capacity would not be an issue were it not for the formidable obstacle of the human nature. The human nature in itself, the primitive brain, that's the biggest obstacle. The need to minimize or win. And let's see what do we mean by minimizing and winning.
There's a place in any conversation where candor and curiosity are in balance and the dialogue is open and learning focused. It's in this conversational sweet spot that ideas flow more freely and breakthroughs are most likely to occur. Yet, there is a problem. It's fairly easy to stay candid and curious when we're exploring an issue of little consequence or when everyone sees things the same way. But when something's important, when people care deeply about the issue and have contrasting perspectives, it becomes extremely difficult to remain in the conversational sweet spot. There's a reason for this: human nature. When conflict arises and differences of opinion get heated, it can trigger two emotional reactions grounded in the primal flight or fight response. These natural defensive reactions often throw us off balance, despite our best intentions. In the context of a conversation, these powerful emotional reactions can be described as the need to minimize and the need to win. When we feel the need to minimize the level of negative emotion, tension, or discomfort in a situation, we tend to react by becoming less and less candid. We then behave in ways that sacrifice progress and effectiveness for a feeling of comfort or safety. When our need to win the conversation is triggered, we tend to react by becoming less and less curious. We then behave in ways that sacrifice progress and effectiveness in order to be right and get our way. We all can be triggered into either minimize or win behaviors. And which way we go in a given situation depends on two things: our own temperament and the context of the situation. Building our conversational capacity allows each of us to stay in the sweet spot when it counts. To do so, we must first learn to recognize when these emotional reactions threaten to knock us off balance, and then act more intentionally to remain both candid and curious under pressure.
So, People are sometimes pulled out of the sweet spot by two powerful human tendencies, the need to minimize and the need to win. Let's see, what do we mean by the need to minimize? When our need to minimize is triggered, we often behave in ways that trade progress and effectiveness for comfort and safety. Why are we moving towards comfort and safety? This is what our primitive brain test tells us to do. We are uncomfortable in trying to uphold the statement or the argument. We feel that it's a safer place to be in where there's less aggravation, there's less irritation, because we believe that it's been going on for long, the discussion. It's important that we stay in candor respectfully. When our, when our need to win is triggered, we often behave in ways that trade progress and effectiveness for getting our way or being correct or being right. What this means is there are times that we move away from the rationality of any argument. We move into the space where winning the argument becomes the sole objective. And we forget that in an argument, the best that you can win is just the argument itself. The focus and the relationship both lose. So it becomes very important for us to stay rational, stay objective, and try to stay non emotional about the subject. At least stay in control of the emotion. It's it's impossible to stay in the sweet spot always if you're unable to recognize when you're leaving it. Yeah. So for you to be managing something, you first need to be aware of it. If you're aware of something, you will be more mindful of it. Now let's say, which behavior constitutes what? When you raise your voice, are you trying to minimize the aggravation or are you trying to win? Mm, okay. So, yes, when you raise your voice, you're trying to win. When you interrupt others, are you trying to minimize or win? You're trying to win again. When you invite like minded colleagues to back up your point, are you trying to minimize the behavior or win? Okay, there's a mixed opinion. Let's try minimize. It is not there. It is a winning behavior because you're scrambling people to your opinion. When you water down or downplay the significance of your point of view, even when you know that it's important, what are you doing? Minimizing or winning? That's right, this is minimizing. When you're trying to avoid conflict, I think that's a clear giveaway, isn't it? This one is definitely minimizing. Yeah. So discuss the issues at the water cooler after a meeting. Yeah. You're choosing not to discuss it there. You're discussing it afterwards. Acquires. What do we mean by this? This means readily agreeing to whatever. Yes. So Bridge has said that. Thank you very much, Bridge. So this is withdrawing or completely surrendering to the viewpoint. That's a minimizing behavior. Emphasize your superior skills, training, or experience. That's a clear winning behavior. Yeah. Remaining silent, minimizing. Correct. Feign agreement, minimizing again. Withdraw from the conversation when challenged, minimizing. Present your view as fact. That's winning behavior. Correct. Never follow up on objections or explore others' perspectives. Let's see. It's not a minimizing behavior. When you don't follow up on others' objections or explore others' perspective, that's when you're trying to put your point above others. It's when you succumb to the other person's ideas and you do not follow up on your own objections, your own viewpoint. That is when this is a minimizing behavior. So this becomes a winning behavior. Pull rank or push your authority or position. Winning behavior. Use email or text to raise an issue you should raise in person. I think Vikrant made a point here. Just a second. Could not following up also be due to avoiding conflict and hence a minimizing behavior? See, Vikrant, it did not mean that you're not following up. You are actively involved in the discussion. You're just not following up on the other's viewpoint, which means you are completely avoiding even addressing that point, which means you think you're giving respect only to your point, and even if someone else makes a point, you are acting contrary to that. Yeah. So use email or text to raise an issue you should raise in person. Sure, Vikrant. That's a minimizing behavior. Oh, people suggested a winning behavior. I could have tried it here as well. I'm sorry. I'll be very, very mindful of that. Now, dominate the conversation. Winning behavior, yes. Ignore the views of others. Again, this qualifies it for you, Vikrant. Make sarcastic or derogatory comments. Cover up information on concerns. Okay, that's minimizing behavior. Hem and haw to avoid giving a definite answer that might be unpopular. Yeah. So, Anil, when you use emails, you're trying to avoid direct confrontation. You're trying to put forward your point while you're trying to avoid speaking and confronting the individual. So, email is an underhand delivery of sarcasm where you don't want to show your sarcasm or your point of superiority that you want to point. You're using an email to do that rather than facing the individual. And this is why it's a minimizing behavior. If you would rather go and speak with the individual respectfully, that would be actual conversational capacity at its play. Winning behavior would be that you're not sarcastic or you're not giving an underhand delivery. You are being very upfront and you're just avoiding the other person's viewpoint. Yeah, to avoid giving a definite answer that might be unpopular. Minimizing behavior. So we got 17 of the 20 cards correct. That's a good point. Yes, the context is important, Anil. Yes, that's very important. So in leaving the sweet spot from time to time and depending on the circumstances, we all fall prey to one of these two counterproductive tendencies. There could be some very interesting questions that we could ask us. Under what circumstances do you see your need to minimize getting in the way of your effectiveness? When it is, what are the circumstances so that they work as a trigger for you and you can be aware of those triggers? And under what circumstances does your need to win get in the way? So let's flip these cards, hold back to avoid conflict in the moment, then bring up my concern later when a better opportunity presents itself. Minimizing behavior, the need to minimize may be your dominant tendency in this situation. Yeah. Do them a favor by speaking up and correcting their thinking. Now, this is your winning behavior. Yeah. When my boss suggests a flawed course of action to address an important issue, if I tend to raise my hand immediately and point out the error, even if it's not a smart move politically, that's winning behavior. If I keep hoping someone else corrects the boss and then back them up if it seems safe to do so, that's your minimizing behavior. Now, let's say When someone speaks to me in a condescending, sarcastic, or disrespectful way, I tend to keep my mouth shut, no sense in starting an argument, minimizing behavior. I'll fight fire with fire, and put them in their place. That's winning behavior. Yeah. Now let's see, what do we mean by catch it, name it, and tame it. Everyone gets triggered. It's how you react to being triggered that determines how effective you will be. So what it means to say is, it's not that things, statements, events, they don't have an impact on us. Of course they have an impact on us. How we respond to this event, or how we respond to this impact, is what determines how effective you are. Now let's watch this video, which defines what do we mean by catch it, name it, and tame it.
We have the best of intentions. We want to work with others to find the best solutions and make informed decisions. But when a challenging topic or conflict arises, our natural defensive instincts often kick in, making open and honest dialogue difficult. When triggered, two emotional reactions grounded in the primal flight or fight response can knock us out of the sweet spot. When our need to minimize is triggered, we're at risk of becoming less candid. And when our need to win is triggered, we're at risk of becoming less curious. These emotional reactions put our effectiveness at risk by decreasing our conversational capacity. So, what can we do about it? In order to prevent a defensive tendency from derailing our conversational effectiveness, we need to learn how to catch it, name it, and tame it. We first need to develop our ability to quickly recognize or catch it when our defensive emotional reactions threaten to throw us off balance. We might notice a surge of emotion, a change in our breathing, or other signs of tension. After catching that emotional response, we need to give it a label or name it. We might think, oh, there's my need to minimize again. Or, there's my need to win, trying to tell me what to do. Why is this important? Research shows that if we can label an emotional reaction, it gives us more control over it. It tames the reaction. Catch it, name it, and tame it. This simple but not so easy mindfulness skill can keep us in control and allow us to act more intentionally in charged situations. We'll be more effective, have more influence, and fewer regrets.
So this draws some value from the emotional quotient study, which says if you call out an emotion, then the matter of uncertainty diminishes. And when you're certain of something, when you call something out and you are certain that this is what it is, your mind is better prepared to manage that or handle that. So having the keen awareness of what is triggering you is important. Now let's click on the triggers and find out what are the most common triggers. One of the triggers could be disrespect, feeling that we or others are being treated in a condescending, rude, or disrespectful manner. This is the first emotional response trigger, one of the most common. The second very common one is stress and pressure. Feeling stressed out or under pressure because of the issue, the context, or the other related issues. That can trigger an emotional response. Social status, our perception of our social standing in the group, and if that is not met, it can trigger that emotion. Cultural background, our family, regional, corporate, national, or ethnic background. Let's say there are certain cultural areas where we are very loud, we're very open. That may be taken as an overtly loud messaging by a, a culture where people are more mindful, relatively more timid. Yeah. Expertise, our level of expertise compared to that of others, this could be one of the reasons that could trigger a sense of superiority and our emotional responses. Authority, our position in the hierarchy. We may behave one way when talking to someone above us in the organization, and another way when talking to someone below us. Well, that tends to happen quite a lot. Justice, the sense that we or others are being treated unfairly. And the biggest challenge here is that justice, fairness, honesty, these are more a matter of a human being's perception than what has actually happened. You may have a lot of context to why something has been decided, yet if people want to believe that they've been treated unfairly, it's the experience that needs to change. And disrespect, which is going back to the same point. So you need to name it. Once you catch the powerful emotional response, it's time to name it. Just name it, and let's see if we are able to name the cards. When I go along just to avoid getting into a disagreement, is there my need to win or minimize? Minimize? Let me try. That's correct. When I enlist supporters instead of exploring opposition, is that for winning or minimizing? That's for winning. Guys, could we all be very, very agile in the chat box? When I avoid conflict by pointing out problems in email rather than in person, minimize. Okay. When I downplay my concerns with my co-workers' plans so that I don't offend them, minimize. When I assert my authority, expertise, or experience to win the argument, winning. Okay. Yes. When I gloss over the problems to avoid undermining the boss's idea, minimizing. Yes. When I ignore or discredit criticism, let's try winning. Oh, yes. When I skip a meeting so I don't have to deliver bad news, minimizing for sure. Yes, Ritu. When I think they don't listen, so why should I point out the plan's flaws? Minimizing. Yeah. When I soft pedal or backtrack if the boss doesn't like what I'm saying, that's minimizing. That's very clear minimizing. When I think this is my project, so I'll assert my control over it, that's winning. When selling my idea, I exaggerate its benefits or the risk of not adopting it, that's winning behavior. When I state my opinion as fact, that's winning behavior. Yes, Ekta. When I dominate conversation and attack detractors, that's clear winning behavior. 14 out of 14 cards, guys. We're just killing it. So research shows that simply naming an emotional reaction gives you more control over it. So the ability to catch and label your emotional reaction gives you greater control of your need to minimize or win. So you can act in a more intentional, balanced, and measured way. Mindful awareness of your emotional reactions increases your ability to think clearly and respond to others in an open, balanced, and non defensive way, even when they're not making it easy. And that's very important. So, even in trying circumstances, your awareness and being mindful of that helps you. Now, we come to the fourth section of it, which is the conversational capacity mindset. Adopting a learning focused mindset provides us with an internal beacon that helps you stay on course even in the confusing fog of a high pressure conversation. Wow. So it says a learning focused mindset is more concentrating on finding the facts, and that helps you stay focused. The internal beacon, which means that you're intrinsically motivated to work towards finding a solution and staying on course or focusing on it. Let's see what do we mean by conversational capacity mindset.
Einstein observed that it's impossible to solve problems with the same thinking we use to create them. So, when challenging subjects arise, we need a new way of thinking, a mindset shift for staying on track when we lose our bearings. To increase our conversational capacity, we must adopt a learning focused mindset that prioritizes thinking more clearly and making smart decisions above feeling comfortable or being right. For this to happen, two additional activities become important to us. We want to explore diverse perspectives and lean into difference. To explore diverse perspectives, we look for views that expand and improve our thinking. We're not seeking agreement. We're trying to accumulate ideas and information so we can make smarter, more informed decisions. A finance person, for example, might see a potential decision very differently after listening to a colleague from sales explain the impacts from their point of view. When we explore diverse perspectives to expand and improve our thinking, we do it with a deliberate bias. We lean into difference. After all, it's the people who see things differently that can generate the most learning. By thinking of alternative and contrasting points of view as opportunities rather than obstacles, we move a conversation to a higher plane. It shifts the exchange from your view versus my view to you and I with our differing views versus our challenge. It can be very difficult to maintain this learning-focused mindset under pressure. We may enter a conversation with this mindset in place, but when the pressure goes up, our need to minimize or to win are often triggered, overwhelming our ability to learn. So, to help retain our focus on learning, there are three simple questions to ask ourselves. What am I seeing that others are missing? What are others seeing that I'm missing? And what are we all missing? Keeping these questions in mind will prompt us to share our own views, to actively seek out the views of our colleagues, and to get curious about the perspectives of people outside of our own team, organization, or industry. Adopting a learning-focused mindset that prioritizes thinking more clearly and making smart choices is essential to building our conversational capacity. It makes it easier to remain both candid and curious when it counts.
So, we've just understood what we mean by a learning focused mindset and how do we practice it. So, when our need to win or minimize is triggered, the ability to quickly refocus on learning helps keep us and the conversation in the sweet spot. So, let's be mindful of the fact that we have to continue to be in the learning mindset. And we need to keep asking these three very critical questions. What am I seeing that others are missing? What others are seeing that I'm missing? And what is it that all of us are missing? Yeah. So exploring diverse perspectives and leaning into difference are two critical aspects of learning focused mindset. So let's see, let's flip this card. What do we mean by exploring diverse perspectives? The potential for profound learning isn't in the sameness around the table or isn't in agreeing to others' viewpoint. It's in the difference. Expand and improve your thinking by seeing the problem from a different perspective. And the more you celebrate that in your teams, the more they thrive in it. What do we mean by lean into difference? Place an emphasis on views that contrast with your own. Place an emphasis on that. Maintain a bias for learning that's greater than your natural defensiveness to different ideas. People who see the world differently than you do, they actually offer the greatest opportunity for learning. Your view, you are aware of it, right? So, who provides a different view and new learning? That's when you explore and you're appreciative of others' views. The three questions are: what am I seeing that others are missing? What are others seeing that I'm missing? And what are all of us missing? So, asking yourself this question expands your curiosity beyond the boundaries of your team, organization, or industry. You're looking far and wide for ideas that might help you see things with greater depth and clarity. What am I seeing that others are missing? Asking this question will encourage you to be more candid about your perspective, ideas, or concerns. Your view might help others expand and improve their thinking. What are others seeing that I'm missing? Now, this will prompt you to wonder whether the views of others can help you see something in a more accurate, expansive, or useful way. Yes, so Adit, they are reminiscent of that. However, when you're doing a Johari window, the process is such that you're in awareness of it. While you are aware that you have gone through the process of assessing yourself, you've given a test, a question point. Yes, I'll show point number three once again, Ritu. So as I was saying, once you are in an assessing mindset, you already move into an academic mindset of learning something new. And that is where you are more aware of it. In this context, we are talking of skills and practicing those skills, which are more appropriate for everyday usage. Yeah, sure. So when learning is more important to us than feeling right or safe, it's easier to act in a way that's both intellectually humble and conversationally courageous. Now look at the beauty of the words that have been used here. When learning is more important to us than feeling right or safe, it's easier to act in a way that's both intellectually humble and conversationally courageous. And this is what I was referring to, Adit, when I was answering to your point. When you're already in an academic mindset, when you've given a test or an assessment or inventory, you filled in an inventory, you're already in the mindset of arriving at something academically enticing. This program is addressing how do you stay in that mindset in everyday life. Though I agree with your point, you're correct. This is where the three questions seem to be aligned to, seemingly. The most effective conversations have a balance of both candor and curiosity. They will have a balance of that. Yeah. The candor skills help you to get ideas out of your head and into a conversation in a clear and useful way. Candor is sharing with respect. Let's see what is candor skill.
When you hear the word candor, what comes to mind? Directness? Straightforward honesty? Frankness in speech or expression? When we communicate, we're using language to get an idea out of our head and into a conversation. There are two candor skills that will help us achieve this goal in a clear and useful way. State your position and explain your thinking. When we state our position, we provide a clear description of where we currently stand on an issue. A well-crafted position should distill the essence of our view into one sentence, no more than two. For example, a clear position statement might be, I think there are two ways we can solve this problem, and I'm not sure which is best. Or, I think the team is overlooking a big risk with this decision. Or simply, I'm confused. Stating our position is a great start, but to fully communicate our perspective, we need to use the second candor skill, explain our thinking, to show others how we got there. For example, we might say, the reason I think we should not do this now is because the last time we made a change like this one, our survey showed that we irritated a lot of our best customers, and I lost a handful of large accounts. Describing the underlying thinking that informs our position can help others to see things they are missing and spark new and better ideas and alternative solutions. It also helps them understand how we arrived at our point of view so they can help us identify any erroneous assumptions or flawed information we may have used to get there. So, when it comes to working in the conversational sweet spot, candor refers to the ability to state our position clearly and explain the underlying thinking that led us to that position. These two candor skills are critical. They help us get our ideas, views, and perspectives into the conversation in a clear, useful, and influential way.
So, candor is stating our position and explaining the reasoning behind it. So, let's see. Show others how you arrived at your position, share the evidence you're using, and how your interpretation or how you're interpreting that evidence. State your position, state whether you currently stand on the issue, be direct and to the point, be concise, use one or two sentences. Now let's practice candor. So, which vendor do you think we should choose to supply the new assemblies? One, two, or three? Two. Let's see. I hadn't considered disruption in this supply. The price difference is negligible compared to the costs of missing shipments and then losing customers. Okay. So I'd select our current supplier because they are dependable and the risk of late shipments and defects outweighs the savings from the other suppliers. Now let's continue. What do you think of starting production next week on the new model? One, two, or three? Ritu says third. Dalan says third. Let's try third. We need 2 more weeks to fix a glitch we found in the prototype that might cause them to fail. Sorry to hear that. I'll schedule around it. I'll gladly hold off on the switchover if it will avoid another defect catastrophic. Okay. I'm curious about your thoughts on the packaging. Did you have any concerns with the sample I sent you? First, second, or third? Second, let's watch second. May not be the best option. But let's move on. Being curious builds knowledge and relationships. Being curious builds knowledge and relationships. So let's see, what do we mean by curiosity skills? Guys, we may stretch a little beyond our slated time. I hope that's okay with all of you.
If we are committed to being well-informed and making smart decisions, it's not enough for us to state our point of view and the thinking that led us there. We also need to be curious about potential gaps and errors in our thinking that we may not be aware of. So, how do we know where our thinking is flawed? How do we find out if we're missing some evidence or making erroneous assumptions? How do we get the ideas of others into the conversation? There are two curiosity skills that will help us find answers to these questions: test your view and inquire into the views of others. In order to effectively test our view, we need to treat it as a hypothesis rather than a truth. Like a scientist publishing her research in a peer-reviewed journal, we subject our point of view to scrutiny. We do this by actively encouraging others to disagree, to share how and where they see things differently. We're encouraging others to help us improve how we're currently making sense of things. A good verbal test not only opens the door to critical feedback, it invites it in. We might say, "I'm more interested in making an informed decision than in being right, so I'd like to hear your point of view, especially if it differs from my own." Asking others to find fault in our thinking may feel risky, but it's necessary if we want to sharpen our decision-making. The next curiosity skill, inquire into the views of others, opens us to new perspectives by leveraging how other people see things. Because people have different experiences, perceptions, and viewpoints, and in the spirit of learning, we need to work just as hard to pull these views into the conversation as we do putting forward our own. Inquiring about the views of others helps us expand and improve our thinking by including more people's perspectives in the conversation. We might ask, "Victor, you said this was a bad decision. I'm curious, what are you seeing that leads you to think that?" Or, "We haven't heard from you yet, Gabby. What does this look like from your engineering perspective?" Skilled inquiry is not just asking a single question. It's the process of asking as many questions as necessary to help someone get their view into the discussion. So, what's the difference between these two curiosity skills? The first allows us a way to test our own views. The second allows us to explore the views of others. And both require genuine listening. When we test and inquire, we focus intently on the responses of others because they're a vital source of new information and insight. We're not doing this to have them agree with us. We're doing it to learn, which leads ultimately to making informed and effective choices.
So that's curiosity, where you show your openness to others' feedback and you're also prepared to be proven incorrect. You invite the perspective of others into the conversation. When you're inquiring into the views of others, you are genuinely curious and your inquiry is in process. It's just a process. Rather than a one-on-one question, it's often necessary to understand the views of another person. Yeah. Test your views. Treat your views like a hypothesis that you're testing. A scientist is not emotionally attached to either of the results. The scientist is more interested in what is the result. Yeah. Invite and encourage people to help you identify errors or gaps in your thinking. And you also open the door to information and perspectives that might help you improve your thinking. So, which of the cards would be a good test case? If you disagree with me, let me know and I'll explain it again so you can understand it. Do you think that's a good way of placing an inquiry? The first card, is it a good test case or a bad test case? Guys, quickly in the chat box. Good or bad? It's good. Okay. Actually, the statement is condescending. It's bad. Yes, Ritu. So it's bad. And the speaker is treating his view as an obvious truth rather than a hypothesis. Do you see the issue differently? Good or bad, guys? This is good. This seems good. Yeah. Right now, I feel like my idea makes sense. That worries me. What might I be missing? A good test case, yes. You have more practical knowledge in this area than I do. So push back on my thinking, especially if you think I've got a blind spot about this issue. Good test case. I put a lot of thought into this, so please don't pick away at the idea unless you have a better plan. I mean, we couldn't have made it more obvious. It seems like the speaker has a lot invested in the plan and really does not want to hear any different ideas. If you agree with me, I don't need to hear from you right now. I already know what I think. I'd like to spend the limited time we have hearing from those who don't agree. It's a good test case. The person is pushing them to give a contrary view. Yes. So, effective inquiry or ineffective inquiry? Let's play this game quickly. You look worried, Pat. What are the problems you're seeing with the solution? Good or bad? Or effective or ineffective? Effective? Let's see. Correct. Thanks for bringing that up. How would you approach this issue? Effective or ineffective? Okay. I'm interested by the way you're framing this. Please expand upon it. Okay. Can you give me an example so I can understand your thinking? Okay. I noticed you're furrowing your burrow. Can you tell me what I'm missing? That's that's effective. I think that's ineffective. That's very, very sarcastic. No? Okay. You're furrowing your burrow. Okay. That's all right. So, Jordan, how are you seeing this as an issue for the sales team? Effective? Let's try that. You don't actually believe that, do you? That's ineffective. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that. Can you elaborate? That's effective. You see this very differently than me. Tell me more about what you feel this way. Why you feel this way, sorry. Effective. I hear you, Brent, but don't you think that's just negative thinking? That's ineffective. Guys, I see only 3 to 4 people responding to it. Could you all be a little more agile? Miles and Cheryl love the idea. Why can't you get on board? Ineffective. Okay. Tony, you look unhappy, but I'll take your silence as agreement. That's so ineffective. Do I need to draw a diagram of the process so you get it? Sure, Dylan. Thank you very much for your time. I think you're confused. Would it help if I explained it in simpler terms? Ineffective. Okay. Tony, you've been quiet. Can you add something that might help? If I agree with you, then we'd both be wrong. Do you have any valid arguments? Ineffective. I'm the expert in the area. What makes you think you know best? Compared to the benefits, don't you think your objections are insignificant? Wow. 16 out of 18 cards were correct. Now let's see how do we apply conversational capacity. The only difference between good and great is practice. So you need to have a game plan. Identify your conversation. Clearly define a challenging conversation you need to have and people you need to have it with. Outline your goals for the conversation and the problem you're trying to solve. So these are few cards that we need to flip that will give us an idea. Anticipate the barriers. Consider the situation, the issues, and personalities involved. How might your need to minimize or win make it difficult for you to stay in the sweet spot? What are the likely triggers that you need to watch out for? Prepare to use the skills. Use the skills you have learned to consider how you will state your position and your thinking. Test your views and inquire into the views of others who may disagree with you or are not forthcoming with their ideas. Structure the conversation. Provide context before you begin the discussion so you don't catch people off guard. Explain that you're trying to use the conversational capacity skills and your intent is to focus on learning and being effective so you can all reach your goals. And we end it with a statement by Ken which says, no one of us is as smart as all of us. So let's all work together and respect others' ideas. Guys, with that, we would have reached the quiz. So this was our small demonstration of what this program is. We will be happy to hear from you. If you can share your feedback on the program in the chat, that'll be great. People who have worked to get you into this discussion, they will be reaching out to you. On 11th of January, we have an open workshop for this program. You can nominate your people or you could nominate yourself to the program and we will be very happy to host you. I've just given you a snapshot of what to expect in the program. This is in great detail. Each aspect will be covered in great detail. People will get a lot of practice. This program can be delivered over 1.5 day. It can also be covered in a day's time if that's required. And a beautiful, easy to apply, very intact and deeply researched model, like always from Blanchard. Thank you very much, all of you. I extend my gratitude to all of you that you found time on a working day to come for this discussion. It's a minimum of a day. Yes, a minimum of 1 day. Thank you very much, all. Thank you very much. Yes, we can train the trainers in the program as well. Yes, Arshad. Thank you very much, Lena. Thanks, Pranita. Thanks, Lena. Thanks, Vikrant. Thanks, Satish, Arshad, Vikrant. Thanks, Ritu. So, Arshad will reach to you with the pricing. We'll share the pricing with you. Thanks, Navneeta. Thank you. So I'll close the session now. Thank you very much, guys. And you please enjoy your weekend ahead. Pleasure.